So in today's video, we'll just be going through the workflow of Google Tag Manager. Now, workflow is basically the sequence in which events happen. So we know the different parts of Google Tag Manager. Firstly, which is tags, which we can fire. Then there's triggers, when we want the tags to fire. Then there's variables, which just give us more information about triggers and tags. And then there's folders for naming conventions and organization purposes. So firstly, this is if you open Google Tag Manager and create an account, this is where you'll end up. This is the workspace. All right, now a workspace, you can see your name is current workspace is a default workspace. Now if you just simply click here, you can see that you can create up to 3 workspaces at a time. What this means is when you have multiple people working on a workspace, there's a chance of changes overlapping. Like suppose if I'm making some changes and if another person who's accessing the account is making some changes at the same time, there's a high chance of those changes overlapping. So you can create your own workspaces and both of you can work uh, in a separate workspace and then publish your changes accordingly. So if I just click plus here and name it Jazz Workspace and save this. So currently I'm in my own workspace. As you can see, the changes are disappeared, the changes that were previously here. And yeah, we can get started with it. So suppose I make some changes. I go to variables and I just go to configure and add some variables here. If I were to add these 6, so I've added these 6 variables into the built-in variables now. Now you can see that in real time the workspace changes have increased and they've gone to 6 because I've made 6 changes to the workspace. So if I were to head back here, go to overview, yeah, you can see here all the workspace changes that I have made and what was the type of change. Right, it was built-in variable which was enabled. When was it edited and by whom was it done? So if someone else does it, you'll be able to see their email ID and you can know who made those changes. You can even abandon changes if you don't want them, and then you can check your activity history, what happened throughout. Firstly, I created the separate workspace for myself and then enable these variables. So you can check out the activity variable as well. Now there's something called as versions here. If you just quickly click onto it and go to versions here, you can see that there are 3 previous versions that I've created and this is the current one which I'm working in, and that's why it shows live comma latest, which means that this is the current version, the most current version, or the version which is now put to work. Right, similarly I could set some other version as latest version as well, or I could just preview a previous version, I could share a previous version, and so on. And if I just head back to workspace, now it is important that before you publish any changes and make them live, it is important to test your work, right? And as we have seen, where we do that is the preview mode. So we'll just quickly go to the preview mode. We'll enter the URL, we'll click connect, and it will open our site in a new tab. Now this is just to check our changes, if our changes have been applied or not, right? So we got the pop-up, and if we were to go to summary now and variables, just a second, variables, yeah. Now we can see that the variables that we had enabled just now, they have started listening. They don't have any value yet because there were no forms to get values from, but we can see that they are still listening. So that means our changes have worked and they are working. There's no error or anything like that. So you can quickly close the preview mode and come back to it. And now if I were to publish this, I'll go to submit, and as you can see, we can submit changes here. We could publish and create a version, like the changes that we have done, we could create a version out of it and publish it now itself, or we could simply just create a version of it and then save it as a draft and publish it later whenever we want to. And the version name needs to be descriptive, because as we have seen previously, you need to document all the changes you make. uh, for collaboration purposes. Like if you're working in an organization and there are different people working on a workspace, then you need to document your changes so even they know what you've done and even you know what you've done. Like after a certain amount of time, if you come back to your workspace, you need to know which changes I made in this version. So that's why it's important to provide a descriptive name. So I'll just put added form variables, and you could provide a further description as well if you wanted to, and it is advised to do so. So I'll just put added created a separate workspace and added 6 form variables. Now you wouldn't actually write this, but this is just I'm showing you a demo of how you can provide a descriptive text. Anyway, moving down, you can see publish to environment. You could also create separate environments here. Suppose you have to do testing, you have to do further testing, so you could create an environment to environment for that and publish it in steps. So currently it's set to live, and we'll keep it like that. And then you can see what changes occurred in this workspace. Then again you can see your activity history, and finally you can click publish. Now, as you can see that our work from this workspace and our work from all the previous versions have combined, and it gives you an overall summary of what has happened. So yeah, here you can see all the tags that are active, all the triggers and all the variables as well. And you might notice that our workspace has vanished, like we are back into the default workspace. Right. This happens because it is a temporary workspace that you're creating. It is only so that your changes during that time do not overlap with any other person who's making changes to the workspace. So this is why after you have published a version once, the workspaces they are automatically deleted. Like if you want to work simultaneously on a workspace with someone again, you'll have to create workspaces for yourself and for the person again. So you can see that the workspace changes has gone back to 0, and all of the history of workspace changes has also been deleted since we have published the changes that we made in that workspace. Also, if someone else is working alongside in a different workspace, they'll get this option to update workspace, so they'll know that a new version has been released, and they'll just click this update workspace. It will show them the changes, update. This will just help to not overwrite anything, like you know uh, not to step on each other's toes is what I would say. So yeah, we have made these changes, we have published those changes, and we can see a live version 4 has now been created. It will give you the summary. If I show you, this is the latest versions, and it will show you the activity history, and then all the tags that are present, all the triggers that are present, and even all the variables that are present here. So if I was to go to the versions tab, here you can see an overview of all the versions that are there. Alright, and we can, as we saw earlier, the live latest was on the third one, but since we have published this now, it will automatically set the fourth version to live comma latest, which means this is the version that's live now. And again, you could preview this version, you could share it, publish it, rename it. And if you wanted to go back to a previous version, suppose you made a wrong change and you want to go back to a previous version, you could just click here and go back to the, you could set this as the latest version. Right, then head back to the workspace, and even after you have submitted the version, even after you have published the version, it is advised to go to the preview tab and test it once again, just to see that everything's in place and no errors have been caused. So yeah, testing is always important, even before publishing and after publishing as well. So this was your workflow of the Google Tag Manager. You have to come in, you have to make changes, you have to test those changes, then you have to publish those changes and test again if they are working or not. So this was the overview of this video. Thank you for watching.